Hello everyone and welcome back to Silicon Sounds, audio for the rest of us. Today it's our pleasure to review the Kiwi Ears Cadenza, another one. The Kiwi Ears Cadenza is a departure from the company whose claim to fame is a much more expensive product called the Orchestra. We're talking about a 10 times difference in price here. So they've stepped significantly down in price in order to present you, which overall is a very well executed earphone. The Cadenza sports a single 10 millimeter, reputed to be a beryllium coated diaphragm housed in an attractive resin shell, which is available in a number of colors. What we have here is a good looking yet unpretentious offering, which at the time of this video is going for $35 USD. And joins an ever-growing number of quality earphones in the increasingly crowded sub $50 USD segment. Offering a slight V-shape, or depending on how you look at it, a V-shaped presentation with more forward mid-range, the Cadenza is a surprisingly detailed little beast. It does offer a slightly forward mid-range with boosted a fairly significant pinna gain, and those heightened upper mids may not be for everyone, but we'll take a look at that later. Good looks are not enough to impress these ears, and as usual, it's really all about the sound quality here at Silicon Sounds. In this regard, the Cadenza does not really disappoint. While not perfect, and no IEM is perfect, the Cadenza brings a pleasant and well-rounded sound that I'm sure many will like. So let's look at a little bit more into detail. Specs are a 10 millimeter beryllium coated dynamic driver. Sensitivity is 110 decibels. Impedance is 32 ohms. It comes with a, as we can see here, a 2-pin cable interface. And here we have a bass port or a port for air. And the cable is an 8-core silver-plated copper 2-pin. Equipment used for this review are the usual EIDA 9038S G3 using the stock filter, the IFI hip DAC, Tempotech Sonata E44, and the tips used for this review that I settled on after tip rolling. And yes, the Cadenza is sensitive to the tips that you use. And just get a closer look here. Kiwi Ears, very nice. Were the BGVP W07s, which is a wide bore, fairly thick tip, very good to get that deep insertion and proper seal. Talk about build, fit, and quality. The Kiwi Ears Cadenza is well built with a very attractive high quality resin shell. It's on the smaller side of medium. I would call these smaller side of medium, not really that large. The included accessories are of good quality, as is the cable. Definitely the cable is not just an afterthought, which unfortunately at this price range is all too common with its immediate competitors. One thing I liked, and it may be minor to some, was the Cadenza has a lip. I'm going to show you more closely. There's a lip. If you will focus, a lip on the end of the nozzle that really serves to hold any tip you put it in, you use with the Cadenza in very firmly so they don't come off and stay in your ear. Let's get right to the sound. The Kiwi Ears Cadenza is more sub-bass oriented with standout speed and detail. There's no sloppy low end here. This is not a bass head IEM, let's be clear about that. It's not pounding you in your head so that you feel like you need a drink or have a headache the next day. But the impact and power are all there. Bass transients were handled admirably with rapid attack and little to no overhang or decay. Chocolate Trip Tip by Tool, which is an interesting track if you want to give it a listen. Came through with a powerful kick drum sounding quite energetic yet very well controlled. Circumstance by Wayman Tisdale also sounded quite good, yet at the same time served to highlight one of the negatives of the Cadenza. Yes, there are negatives. And that is that at times, the bass can sound a tad too dry. losing some of its organic character. All in all, though, it is a good showing by the Cadenza, just that depending on what you're listening to, it can lose a little bit of the organic, the realism. The bass is almost too taut at times, too dry, and that's just something I noticed. Again, track dependent and definitely genre dependent. Mid-range. The mid-range of the Kiwi Ears Cadenza is pleasantly detailed, being somewhat recessed as well. Female vocals take on a heightened presence here as there is a generous pinna gain. That gain is both a blessing and a curse with the cadenza in that while it serves to highlight detail elements, it can lead to a measure of grain and glare in both the upper mid-range and lower treble, depending on the track and the music energy in that part of the frequency spectrum. This can negatively impact timbre and organics to some extent. I am very sensitive to excessive, what I would call pinna gain, or very aggressive pinna gain, and sometimes the cadenza just comes through as having that element. Detail retrieval and separation are admirable for IM of this price. This is occasionally negated by the issue mentioned above and can be heard in such tracks as Safe from Harm by Massive Attack, where a touch of smear is apparent in the upper mids and lower treble during playback. On more sparsely produced tracks, this effect was not as apparent. For example, Dennis Brown, an icon of reggae music, his very well-known song Here I Come sounded fantastic on the cadenza. Transients are handled very well with sharp attack and good decay characteristics. Treble. Treble is reasonably extended and detailed with a reasonable amount of air and sparkle. Overall, the treble presentation is fairly detailed and articulate with little harshness, except for that smear apparent at times that comes from the lower treble. But it doesn't really affect the upper treble that much. Cymbal work is crisp and clean with good separation from other elements. Vanston Place, 12 a.m. by Ronnie Jordan, has lots of stuff going on with respect to cymbal work and other effects. The cadenza played back these very well with no element obscuring another while sounding open and airy. They do have fairly good instrument separation and layering. Of course, when things become very complicated or loud, it does suffer. And again, the sound will become a little bit more congealed and less defined. But this is a characteristic that is shared by many earphones, and particularly in this price bracket. Imaging and soundstage. The Kiwi Ears Cadenza has a reasonable sized soundstage with good width and height. Depth is not as apparent, but there's enough to keep the cadenza from sounding too closed in or claustrophobic. Imaging is stable with instruments being reasonably well defined in the space allotted by the cadenza. On busier tracks though, and at moderately high to very high volume, this can suffer though with instrument separation becoming more congealed and less defined as mentioned earlier. So let's do a little verses here. We'll go to the Tangzu Wan The Wan is not a technical IAM. Its claim to fame is not how technical it is. It is a very smooth sounding, will not offend, inoffensive playback. And in this respect, the cadenza really takes the crown. The cadenza is a much more technical IAM with significantly more detailed retrieval. That be saying, the Tangzu offering though is markedly smoother performer, and this does not mean it's better. Choose your poison, really. Technicalities versus smooth. Get this one in here, the Celeste Gummy Hoe. Well, here we have something interesting. Here we have two earphones with similar levels of technical prowess. I would say that, again, the Celeste Gummy Hoe is a very interesting one. It's taken a quite unusually long amount of time to quote-unquote burn in and really settle down. I spent time with all IEMs doing the same burn-in, but the about 40 hours or so, but the Gummy Hoe took significantly longer, maybe double the time as well. It's a little bit more source dependent. In terms of character, I would say the Gummy Hoe is even more balanced. Then the Cadenza has, again, similar amounts of detail, but does not have that upper mid-range, lower treble glean or sharpness to it at all. Slightly cleaner sounding, actually, than the Cadenza with respect to organics. I would have to say, between the two of these, I do prefer the Gumiho over the Cadenza. It's something I can listen to for a lot longer period of time with varying different genres of music. Usually when I sit down to a listening session, there's jazz, there's house music, there's R&B, there's reggae music, all the different kinds. And I just feel that the Gumiho lends itself better than the Cadenza when we're talking about different genres. With respect to power and impact, the Cadenza sounds a little bit more sharper, powerful in a way, or dynamic. Let's just put it like that. But when it comes to organics and technicalities, let's talk about organics first. I would say that the Gumiho is superior to the Cadenza. When it comes to technicalities, they're very close to each other. But again, I would still, if I had to choose between the two, I would choose the Gumiho. Another one that I don't have on the table is the Tin Hi-Fi T3 Plus. Overall, the Cadenza shows a tighter and more controlled presentation with arguably better detail retrieval. That being said, the T3 Plus has a more expansive soundstage and does take the prize when it comes to organics, or the timbre, the realism of the sound. And that's the difference right there. Compared to my just reviewed earphone that I reviewed just recently, the Gimlet, the QOA, Queen of Audio Gimlet. Please excuse me. How do you say this? The Cadenza sounds a little bit more dynamic. It's sharper, but not in a bad way. When I say sharp, I mean things just start and stop a lot, somewhat quicker. It has a definite raise in the upper mid-range that heightens the sense of detail retrieval. That being said, with the proper tips and, of course, amping source, the QOA Gimlet does win out when it comes to, for example, organic sound, a little bit more cohesive, and definitely smoother presentation. In terms of long-term listening, I would probably give the Gimlet the go-ahead, but they do sound significantly different, where I can't say one might be better than the other. It really depends on what you're looking for. But again, the Gimlet has a lot going for it with respect, well, comparatively speaking, to the Cadenza. The Gimlet has a lot going for it in terms of organic presentation, timbre, and just a smoother presentation than the Cadenza. Technicalities, again, Cadenza, smoother presentation would be the Gimlet. Conclusion. So let's bring it all together. Oy. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. The Kiwi Ears have really made a good showing here with the Cadenza. It is a capable performer with a sound that will satisfy much more than it disappoints. Its technical prowess is notable, in particular given the asking price. Is it perfect? No. I'm fairly confident I will never find a perfect earphone or any kind of reproducer of recorded sound. It's more like, in this case, how much are we willing to accept the trade-offs? While the Cadenza may not satisfy everyone, and no earphone does, its positive attributes cannot be denied. If you want a very clean, technical sound, quick, good transients, impact, the Cadenza may be for you. If you have pin and gain sensitivity, or something of that regard, maybe not so much. And interestingly, though, even with the enhanced pin gain, the highs have air and sparkle, but not as much as I've heard, for example, in the Sound Notes Zero, for example. Still, taken as a whole, the Cadenza is a good earphone. It will satisfy a lot of people, and I think it's definitely worthwhile to look into. I want to thank you once again for joining us at Silicon Sounds for these one-off, one-take video reviews of these earphones. Please subscribe to the channel and realize also that we have a link down below for our written blog, and we do have a presence on Instagram. Thanks again, and see you soon. Have a great day.